Ciaran, thanks so much for joining me today on the Financial Planner Life podcast. My first guest since coming back from my holiday, and my first guest at 40 years old.
Nice. Yeah. How was the lakes?
Amazing, actually. Yeah, I had an amazing time. It rained 24/7, but we had such a good time. In fact, my wife said it was the best holiday she's ever been on, and lots and lots of walking. We went and did that Striding Edge, Helleven.
Yeah, Helleven.
Yeah, and it was ridiculous weather. So it's really cloudy, really misty, really windy, really wet.
Yeah.
We got up to that Striding Edge, and I was nervous. I'll be honest with you. It's a grade 1 scramble. When you read grade 1 scramble, you think to yourself, well, it should be quite easy. It wasn't easy at all. It was really, really tough. And you get to the end of that Striding Edge and you look up and it's like a sheer rock face. And you think, well, how am I supposed to get up there?
Yeah.
My wife was worried a bit. And then these doctors came along actually behind us who had done it before. And they just said, look, keep on going. So we walked with them. So I was really pleased that they came at the right time, because I think we would have probably turned back because it looked a bit hairy.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Anyone who I know who's done Helleven, basically, I don't think they've ever had any good weather.
No.
But it's meant to be a good scramble.
Absolutely. And we had such a good time. And on the very last day, the sun came out for like about an hour. So it was kind of like the lakes were saying to me, look, if you've had this much fun in the rain, come back in the sunshine, because it looks like this. And it honestly, it was beautiful. I'm so glad I went, and I love my walking. I love being outside. I think being in nature is so important. The Japanese call it a green shower, don't they? Get out in nature and it replenishes the soul and makes you feel good. And it's certainly done that. I feel fantastic.
Ideal.
So, my man, thank you for joining me. Obviously, you and me have spoken a few times, haven't we, in the past? And you're one of the early listeners to the podcast. And I think you found it quite useful when you were making that transition from a career outside of financial planning, then into financial planning. And a year has gone by. I can't believe how quickly that's gone. And I always said, look, when you get to that stage where you've got a year under your belt in financial planning, I want to hear about it. I want to hear about your journey, because I know it's going to inspire lots of people who have come from another profession or thinking about becoming a financial planner, and really your experience within that first year and how beneficial it's going to be to them to listen to it. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I think it was one of your first podcasts that I listened to. And it was while I was kind of looking for the financial advice role. I'd basically done a lot of experience, the para planning and the administrative work prior. But it was that leap that actually was kind of proven quite difficult. But, it was, you spoke to a few financial advisors and I took a lot of information from that. It was really beneficial.
Fantastic. So, Ciaran, let's just start at the beginning then. So, why did you decide to become a financial planner, and what was your sort of transition? How did you get into the profession?
So, I suppose when I left uni, I got into insurance and doing kind of complaints for accident, sickness, and unemployment. Did that for like four years. And then moved on to the financial ombudsman service, which was kind of really the next step up regarding that kind of category of advice. And when I basically got to the ombudsman service, I then looked around and kind of thought myself, what is this really what I want to be doing? And it was strange as well. We were doing hours from like 10 till 3. And it was really short hours, and I was kind of looking around and thinking, I'm 25 here. Basically, are these the hours I really want to be doing? It was ideal, don't get me wrong, but it basically made me think, and I was like, well, I've always wanted to kind of give advice. I'd spoke to advisors previously, and decided, do my qualifications from there, do my, level 4. And then that allowed me then to move on to wealth management, which basically meant I was, I took a leap. So I left the ombudsman service, which was like going to be a 24-month contract, and took a 7-week contract with a FTSE 250 company, so wealth management company. And that turned out to be 18 months actually. So it was ideal. And I worked with basically the best advisors in that FTSE 250 company and learned a hell of a lot. So basically I learned the theory while I was studying, and then seeing the practicality of it and seeing it being implemented, and then that really gave me, you know, the buzz for it, and kind of really, yeah, I seen the value of it.
Fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's just go back to that then. So you were working in insurance, moved across to the FOS, so the Financial Ombudsman Service, working around the complaints side of things. So obviously complaints and things was an interest to you at the time?
It was a bit of interest because I got to see really the back end of it, you know, the back office stuff. But I just identified that, you know what, you want to be in front of clients, not really dealing with their complaints. And I wanted to basically be handling, you know, helping people rather than helping them with their complaints, essentially. So that was then the leap that I took basically into the front office kind of work, where, you know, you're actually proactively dealing with clients, not rather than reactively.
When you were working on the complaint side of things, and obviously there's a sort of high attention to like emotional intelligence when you're having to deal with clients that have got claims going through that are quite large size, and it can be quite an emotional experience, you know. I used to work for Aviva, and Aviva had a joint venture with the Royal Bank of Scotland. So a lot of the clients that would come through to us might well be making complaints about their mortgage endowment plan. They might be making complaints about their life assurance not paying out, etc. So it was highly sensitive. But I found within that role, there was a great learning experience for me around customer experience and customer service. And I think customer service, customer experience is a great training ground to get to know people and understand people, and also to ensure that when you do end up, say, selling something to somebody or offering a service as a financial planner, that you are able to ensure that you have their interests at heart and you are treating that customer fairly, aren't you?
Exactly. And that's what you get to see, I suppose, from that end is, well, what not to do. You know, and you get to see, well, actually what you shouldn't be doing, and that then allows you to see, well, actually what should you be doing. And then that gives you that open, you know, it opens your eyes to, well, actually people are upset with, you know, sometimes the advice that they've received. And, you know, with regards to the payment protection insurance, sometimes it become pretty much like, it wasn't really, it was kind of, you know, this is how a case should be handled and move on to the next one. And that was kind of one of the things where I was like, you know, you need to be treating each individual differently. And that is why I kind of was like, you know what, I just want to be going out there and actually dealing with each individual client, because of, you know, the payment protection insurance becomes slightly, you know, you've got to do 5 of these a day, and it was kind of pretty monotonous. There wasn't much autonomy, where actually I think dealing with individuals should be kind of, you know, spend a lot of time actually looking after them. And and that's basically how it led to, you know, well, actually what you want to be doing is looking after each individual client.
Okay, getting into that experience side of things. So yeah, absolutely. When you see things on the other end of the scale, you think to yourself, well, I could probably do a better job. I could deliver a better service, a better experience for that client or for that customer. And it drives you to ensure that you have a higher level of professionalism. I can understand that. So you moved in as a business consultant then, CRCC Limited, wasn't it? That was you were working as a consultant, but working within wealth management firms, helping out with projects. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So it was basically my own limited company. And I went in as a consultant with one of the wealth management firms, well, a few wealth management firms. And what that meant was, it was basically around the MiFID II. So all advisors had to meet their clients within, you know, 12 months, 18 months. Some of them, you know, basically hadn't spoke to the clients, you know, for a couple of years, but MiFID II was implemented, and it meant that you had to meet your clients every 12 to 18 months. And so I was helping the advisors kind of reach out to the clients, ensure that they dealt with their clients, you know, within that time frame, and actually I'd reviewed all the products within that time frame as well. So I actually spent, you know, probably about 6 months just reading suitability reports, ensuring that each product had been looked at. And that meant, you know, working with the best advisors within that firm, I was kind of reading the detailed suitability reports, looking at each individual product. And yeah, it was a hell of a learning curve. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So working with some of the best financial planners in some of those firms, because I mean, some of the firms you were working with, James Hay, Quilter.
Yeah,
Brewing Dolphin, for instance.
Brewing Dolphin, yeah, that's Brewing Dolphin where basically it started. And then it was then Quilt Achieve It, where I basically worked on from the investment management side. And that basically let me see the other side of the business, the portfolio construction, get to see the analysis that goes into each individual investment. And then that opened the door into meeting Scott Stevens. I think
I know Scott.
Yeah, we've mentioned him before, and he opened the door to, well, this is the network of Quilter, and then that allowed me then to be introduced to Ablestoke.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that chance encounter with Scott then, was it? It was in an elevator, wasn't it?
Yeah. So basically, he'd give a speech at Quilt Achieve It, kind of explaining the network, and just so you're given kind of an induction to basically what Quilter was. And the meeting finished, and I kind of jumped in the elevator at the same time and basically just give a bit of a pitch actually. And yeah, we got chatting. We swapped cards, and then I got in touch with him, and he put me in touch with the right people, who then enabled me to get in touch with basically the network within Quilter. Yeah, so yeah, it's good.
Okay, cool. So at that point, then you weren't a financial advisor. You weren't working within financial. You weren't working within a financial, planning practice. You weren't competent advisor status. You were really at the beginning of your journey, looking for that opportunity to move into financial advice. Had you already made the decision, though, that you were going to become a financial advisor, or were you holding on to that being a consultant? Because being a consultant, you can earn really great money, can't you? It's a great place to be. But did you make the decision like quite early on, right, I'm going to be a financial advisor, so I'm going to start my qualifications? Or how did that transition from consultant to financial advisor happen? I know you spoke to Scott Stevens, obviously in the lift, and you got introduced, and that's a great opportunity. We all seize those opportunities. But did you start your qualification first? Did you make that mental decision you're going to be an advisor?
Yeah, so that was at the Ombudsman service. So when I made the decision, and then that was about 4 or 5 years ago,
Right.
2016. Then I made the decision that actually I want to get into financial advice. Basically, with regards to the consultant work, that was kind of you're going in fixing a problem, and then you basically after a year you were then moving on to the next project, and it basically meant that there wasn't really much kind of continuity, or there wasn't really much kind of, I didn't, sometimes a project could get pulled, and you've been there 18 months, you started kind of integrating within the company, and then after that the contract finished and you kind of felt like you were starting again. And so then it was kind of, well, actually, what do I really want to do? And it was actually, well, I do want to give financial advice. And when I was at Quilt Achieving, I actually had a couple of interviews with the investment managers, spoke to these guys about it, and we come to the conclusion that it's financial advice. I come to the conclusion that it's financial advice that is the area. You've got the investment management side, you've got so many facets to kind of wealth management, and it was pinning down, well, actually this is definitely the angle, because it's such a big industry. It's really difficult to kind of sometimes think, well, actually, what do I want to do? Where do I fit in this kind of big organization? And it probably took 4 years working in different areas to identify this is exactly what I want to do. And then that was when basically I started looking for purely financial advice roles.
Let's talk about that then. You've made the decision, you've had some great experience of working in these firms, you've sat back, you've observed, you've worked in different positions, worked alongside financial advisors, had some great conversations with some investment managers who steered you in the right direction as well. Why did you decide to become a financial planner? Why did you decide that was the career path for you then?
I think really it's kind of what I really enjoy is some of the technical stuff with regards to financial planning. And it's amazing how people just don't know this information. It's incredible. I was speaking to a client yesterday, and we were talking about how this isn't educated in its school. And I think this should become part of the syllabus of school. I actually even reached out to my school yesterday just to kind of think, right, okay, we should have a conversation. I could go in, and I really think honestly that this should become part of, everyday life. Everyone should know about this. And so really when I kind of, when I was reading all the information, when I was doing the exams, I was like, well, why isn't this kind of the norm? Why don't people know about this? And really that is why I want to kind of be out giving advice, because it's an education process first and foremost. Before anyone becomes a client, it's making sure that they understand what actually everything is. And when you get into the real complexities of everything, there's so much depth to it. And everything evolves as well. Regulation changes, and you've got to keep on top of it. And it's constant moving, massive moving, snowball, I suppose.
Okay, cool. So when you decided then to move into financial advice, so you moved then into Ablestoke then, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I had
Okay.
I had a few interviews in the process of looking for a financial advice role. Decided to not take on a couple, because not a few companies, and then Ablestoke come around, and I basically took the role.
Fantastic. So leading up to Ablestoke then, you mentioned there you went out, you interviewed with a few different companies. Did you have your level 4 qualification before heading out to interviews, or were you part qualified?
I had my level 4.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. And level 4, was that through the CII or anybody else?
That was through the London Institute of Banking and Finance, LIBF.
Okay. Interesting question I'm going to ask you then. Your experience of going out and trying to find a job as a financial planner without an experience of being a financial planner with the LIBF qualification, did you struggle?
Without having the experience, it was a big struggle. Without having the experience, with regards to the LIBF, I don't think people were that bothered. Okay. With regards to the CII or the CISI, it was actually having a level 4 was pretty, it's pretty strong on the CV anyway. Because I know a lot of these, a lot of companies weren't even looking for level 4. So recruiters kind of found me it kind of found that level 4 advantageous anyway to get me in the door. So they weren't really bothered about the LIBF or CII. And to be honest, the LIBF is it's a lot more practical rather than the CII. The CII, I think, is a bit of a, memory test, where actually the LIBF, we had to write suitability reports and everything like that. I found it, and the way I learn as well, it was just far more useful.
Yeah, sometimes, I've worked in the profession now recruiting in financial planning firms, and there's always been this kind of prestige attached to the CII and a bit of a negativity towards LIBF. And I know that if I was to retrain and become a financial planner, for instance, I would go down the LIBF route because of the practical side of it.
Yeah.
And it's quicker and it's cheaper. To me, it seems like a solution to the lack of financial planners that are out there, how quickly we can get them up to level 4 qualifications to be able to give the financial planning advice. I mean, none of these qualifications are going to sit there and teach you how to be an advisor.
No, exactly.
Right? That's what you learn on the job. And I think a specific certain skill set that's then brought to the table is hugely beneficial. And I mean, like your background, if you were to come to me and you were level 4 qualified without any experience and you wanted to become a financial planner, the first thing I do is I look on your CV. First thing I do is I have a conversation with you, and I think to myself, has this person got the skill set required to become a financial planner? Have they gained any experience in previous roles where that skill set can be transferable? Now, working as a consultant, working on projects, having to sit down with people, articulate detailed projects and open them up and speak to different stakeholders and win people over and, get someone to understand your point of view. I mean, they're all incredible skill sets that as a financial planner becoming very, very useful when you're sitting down with somebody who needs to be educated, let's say, on a product range or a situation in life that they might not be prepared for before you even start to actually invest their money for them. So it's a very personable role, isn't it? And then stepping into that financial advice role without that personable experience, I think can be quite tricky. Would you agree? Or do you think, let's say someone came to me today, right? Level 4 qualified. They've studied in their back bedroom. They've done it. They're 21 years old. They've come straight out of university and they said to me, Sam, I want to be a financial advisor right now. Yeah. I mean, without the face-to-face experience, client-facing experience, even sales or customer service, I think it's a struggle for that person. What do you think, based on your experience of your first year within financial planning?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you've got to have that kind of, you've got to have that bit of experience, how to deal with people, even in work kind of situation, coming out of university. Well, people, you can be kind of I've seen it happen in our firm, where actually a young guy straight from uni's come out, but he's actually done the qualifications underneath one of the advisors. And he's basically learned the back office stuff, and really, and then he's now leaping into the advice side. He's quite young, but he is chartered. He's going to be chartered in the next couple of months. But that is also, if you can, it might be a tough test, because ultimately, if you're 25 and you're advising a 55-year-old person about their finances, then how do they see that? And
have you found that at all? Have you found that in the role of a financial advisor, where age becomes a bit of a tricky area when it comes to trust, perhaps?
Not particularly for myself, because I think I'm at the age where, mid 30s, and kind of, got a bit of experience, and you've got the qualification behind you, you know what you're talking about. That really doesn't become that much of an issue. But I imagine if I was 23, coming out of university and just kind of trying to give advice to a retiree, it'd be pretty difficult. Even with all the knowledge, is kind of, well, and it helps, that I've got no hair, so that's a bonus.
What are you trying to say? You look mature. Is that
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
I think though, it does it does help. I think, I think if you're sitting down with somebody, perhaps they're in their 50s or 60s, and I know we shouldn't be ageist, and it should really be about the individual, their knowledge and their understanding of what they're doing. And but I think sometimes there is that natural kind of curiosity as to whether or not that person is experienced enough to look after me and whatnot. I mean, I was in hospital yesterday, I told you, and in came a trainee doctor, and I said, how old are you? And he was like 20, 21, and I'm looking, and he's asking me all these questions, and he's obviously learning and everything. And I was cool with that. But it was like looking at him thinking, like, can you bring
Where's your boss?
Can you bring the doctor in? Yeah.
yeah. There's a consultant around, or
yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I understood that he was just practicing, essentially, and he's learning somewhere. Actually, he was a good guy, and as I got to know him, and he had a lovely manner about him as well, and like really quite, and that was something that perhaps you don't get sometimes from somebody who's been a bit long in the tooth and done the job for some time.
Well, that's it, exactly. And people who are eager and kind of want to help people. That one of the the advisor I'm talking about is very bright as well, and he's got every qualification that he's the most qualified you can be within the industry. So that doesn't kind of, it's not a disadvantage for age. It's, as you say, people who are a bit long in the tooth. There's a kind of theory out there which I learned from Quilter, was actually, the more knowledge an advisor gets, well, actually, the less they take on with clients. And I think sometimes what can maybe happen is that, you might sit down with a client, and a client kind of gives you some objections, and you could be just like, look, I know more, and you could be a bit frosty with them. And I think actually advisors have to kind of watch that and basically be like, no, everyone has their own opinions, and then you just have to kind of not just completely say, no, you're wrong. It's actually listening to that individual, and then basically explaining, well, this is actually how it should go, or but ultimately everything is down to what someone's objectives are first and foremost. But you just got to show them the most efficient way of getting there. And I suppose if you're like 65 and you've got a 30-year-old coming up to you, and they're trying to tell you what they want to do, and they're not listening to you, you have to kind of be calm and collective and be like, well, actually, this is how you do it. And if you've been doing it for a while, you have to kind of still maintain that, you've got to maintain that this is someone's beliefs, and you've got to just try and educate them properly.
Ciaran, you've been at Ablestoke now, haven't you, for just over a year?
Yeah.
Just over a year. So let's just talk a little bit about your journey within that year. So what's been going on for you? So you went into Ablestoke. Okay, you interviewed there. They offered you the job.
Yeah.
So what job was it they offered you? Did you go in straight away as a financial advisor, or were you a trainee? Did you do administration, power planning? Was it a baptism of fire? How did it start when you first joined Ablestoke? Can you sort of talk us through that year? Let's go through that, because I think that'd be really interesting for somebody who's thinking about becoming a financial planner and what they should really expect from that first year.
Mm-hmm. So I went in as a client account manager. And what this meant was I was kind of there helping the partners, helping the partners provide advice. Some of the partners were providing advice to my network, and I was then supporting them with documentation, doing a lot of their work while they were delivering the advice. I was obviously sitting in on the meetings and learning a lot from the partners about how they kind of, how they were talking to the clients, and also, the technical knowledge that I hadn't seen when I've just read it, but actually the explanations of the technical knowledge as well, which was really important. So I kind of was sitting in on these meetings with the clients, and yeah, it was really good for the first 6 months. That's what we did. And then I'm now moving on to then basically going through competent advisor status with Quilter. That's been the last 6 months. And yeah, it's been a hell of a learning curve. Then you're going through the kind of compliance section with Quilter through the competent advisor status. And you get to see what work you were doing previously to other advisors when I was being the back office doing the checks on individuals. And yeah, it's very interesting actually to see, how back office is kind of looking upon advisors, and you've got to flip your hat, don't you, and be like, well, actually, I used to do that. And so I've been doing that for the last 6 months, dealing with my own clients as well. Got annual reviews coming up for clients who I've introduced to the partners. And so I need to do annual reviews with my clients. And yeah, it's been a pretty amazing process. Been challenging, long hours, and it's working during holidays, but it's been amazing. Yeah, and working with the partners, getting that knowledge, getting that understanding of how to speak to people really has helped me push on.
Okay, so having those mentors within the business has been something of a real benefit to you then.
Yeah, definitely. Seeing people who've done it, and they've been doing it for 14 years, doing it for 16 years. You go in and you start again. You basically don't know anything, and you just got to absorb every bit of information from these guys, and that's been pretty powerful actually.
When you went into the role then, did you feel like you were like, yeah, brilliant, I'm a financial advisor, I know exactly what I'm going to do, I've done my qualifications, and I'm going to go out there and give loads of advice, I've got a network of people I can introduce? Was there a bit of an ego check as you came in within the first couple of months? Did you think, oh my God, this is so different to what I expected?
Yeah, it was so a lot different to what I expected. But I suppose because I looked for a financial advice role probably for about a year to actually find the right firm. And actually, it was very difficult. Not many people wanted to take, someone with back office experience on, with no financial advice experience. Basically, because I looked hard for a year, actually, when I went in, I was just like, what, I'll just do whatever is required in order for me to kind of, become an advisor. So, I just kind of listened to what the kind of process was, believed in the process, and that allowed me then to kind of, not get too ahead of myself and not be too, I'm an advisor straight off the bat. So yeah, it was because I think that because of the difficulty of actually getting a role and getting a financial advice role, basically with no experience of giving advice, that basically allowed me then to kind of take a backward step and go, okay, I'm gonna follow you in this process, and I'm gonna listen to you guys.
Well, let's look at that then, because there's a lot of people who get their level 4 qualification. They do go out and they interview with quite a few companies, the companies that will consider interviewing them. And they get a lot of knockbacks before they actually get an offer. It's a lot harder to find a financial planning role or a company that will take you on without that experience, even if you have got back office experience. So it's really down to the firm and their confidence in their career framework, essentially their training and the development program, that they know that they can take somebody on without experience and push them through. So what do you think it was about you and what you could bring to the table that really sparked an interest from Ablestoke over, other companies that turned you down, for instance?
was during COVID as well,
Mm.
and there was a few time frames where we didn't have much interaction, but I had his direct email address, I had his basic phone, and I was just sending him I was treating him a bit like a client, as in like, if I was the advisor, how would I treat a client? And not as in kind of pestering, but as in kind of providing information, keep on providing information to the client. And that's how I kind of with Lee, because I was like, you know what, I really want this role. It actually was an employed role as well. A lot of the roles are self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was an employed role, and I really seen this as, advantageous. And I kind of, I just basically sent him emails backing up my credentials, and that's how I kind of did it.
And you build a bit of a relationship back and forth via email first, or did you meet him face to face first? Were you introduced via a recruiter? How did that come about?
I was introduced through a recruiter, but actually we never met in person. We only spoke on the phone. Obviously, because of the situation with regards to COVID, we only spoke on the phone, and we built up a relationship first and foremost. He kind of, did a bit of a check on myself, understood what I wanted to achieve. That is actually one of the big things as well. I find that a lot of the financial advice firms want to understand is, well, actually, what do you want to achieve? And it's similar to how you work with a client as well, because you need to understand the individual first and foremost before you can give any advice, or you can take them on. And that's kind of what Lee did with me. He wanted to understand me as an individual over the phone, and then we kind of then I did a psychometric test to actually understand my character as well, and how I deal with certain situations, which was pretty powerful to get the results. Actually, it was my first real psychometric test. It was really good. I loved it. And then we spoke. Then I sent, I spoke on the phone again, and then sent a follow-up email basically with the people who I'd worked with, who he potentially could have worked with, and sent all that information through. And then I think that really sealed the deal.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So providing that, I think it's this advice I give to anybody that's coming into the profession. A lot of the time I say, look, put your feelers out to some recruitment consultants, but don't be 100% banking on those recruitment consultants finding you a role, because a lot of the clients they work with, unless they specifically have a need for a trainee without experience, they don't want to pay a recruitment fee more often than not for somebody without experience. They want us to find them the experienced candidates. Now that's going to massively change over the next 5 to 10 years as we get less and less financial planners out there that are actually in the role fully qualified. And, I see a lot of financial planning firms having to step outside of the profession as a whole and start attracting new people into their businesses, not just the experienced advisor who can bring 20 million quid with them under management. That's changing. But what I always advise anybody is to say, look, build that list of companies within your local area that you can approach and build a relationship directly. Now you can do that even easier these days, can't you, via LinkedIn? It's very easy to follow the companies, connect with the person in the company who's the right person, be able to display a keenness and an interest via your LinkedIn profile and the posts that you do, the comments that you make on relevant industry posts, so you start to get seen by the internal recruiters or the people that are on social media from the financial planning firms that you want to work for. You have to market yourself and you have to push yourself out there to be seen and to be heard. And you're absolutely spot on. I'm a business owner. When somebody approaches me via email after or before I've even interviewed them, something changes in me where I really like that person because I like their approach. Because a job like recruitment, a job where you have to prospect, requires a subtlety and a skill set of actually making contact with somebody and not pissing them off.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to see, and that's what I like to hear. And that's the advice I always give people, is that have something of interest to give somebody, so it shows them that you are have the right skill set, B, are interested and are the right person to work for their firm. So research their company, look at them, look at the person you're trying to contact. All their information's on LinkedIn. Pull some information off their profile. If you see they've gone to a certain school or they do a lot of charity work, etc., try to speak about those things when you're talking, to build that rapport and get your foot in the door. Because 9 times out of 10, if somebody does that the right way and it's not pestering in a negative sense, tend to go, God, you know what, go on then, let's have a chat.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
once you have that chat, then then it's the relationship side, isn't it?
That's it.
Then there's a connection. And then it's like, well, how do I turn this guy down? Because actually I really like him now.
Yeah, yeah. And that's everything, isn't it? It's building relationships with people.
Mm.
And it's that kind of communication constantly with with your employer, or, just kind of even a prospect. You've
Mm.
got to get along with people first and foremost. And you've got to enjoy, having that conversation with them, because say if you're going to work for someone for 10, 15, 20 years, you've got to kind of get along as well. It's a massive thing.
Mm.
And, say for example, from a recruitment side, I know recruitment because my girlfriend does it. Basically, you've got to get along with the client as well.
Mm.
And it's that subtle kind of touch base. When I worked with the recruiter actually who got me the role in financial advice, he was just constantly checking in on me every 3 months, every 6 months, and just kind of keeping in touch. And you know what? In certain stages, it wasn't the right time, but actually, it eventually worked out to be the right time to
Mm.
actually find the role for myself. And that's the same with regards to kind of financial advice as well. Basically, sometimes a client's not ready to do stuff because they've got too much movement, too much change in circumstance. They actually need to have a settled kind of base, and then you can kind of give the advice. And with regards to kind of, you should never really kind of give up on any relationship. As long as you get along with the person and the person obviously respects you, then you can still continue a relationship even if nothing has come of it, first and foremost.
Absolutely. It's like that breadcrumbing, isn't it? As I always say, again, I say to people, is that, they might not be interested in offering you a job right now.
Mm, mm.
That's right now. Pop a bit of information across, follow up in a couple of months.
Yeah,
How
exactly.
you doing? I just wanted to let you know this, I've just passed this qualification. I just want to let you know, I read this really interesting article and I thought, well, I thought you might be interested yourself. Just touching base. If you've got anything going on, just let me know. And I think a lot of the time, people just consider everything, whether it's finding a job, finding new clients, as being very transactional.
Mm,
It's like I'm making a call and I'm gonna get it done there and
and
then.
that's it.
Yeah, and it's not. It's an ongoing process, and there are people out there on social media, for example, LinkedIn, doing it incredibly well. That I've given them advice. I said continually put yourself out there, and it's been beautiful to see these people who come to me without any confidence and no experience, and they're putting themselves out there, and they're now finding their jobs. And I'm getting messages saying, "Sam, that advice you gave me was spot on." Now I may not have placed them in the job, but somebody else has. And I'm pleased that they've got that job because they've taken an initiative to get out there and do it. And it's one of the things I always say is just use your initiative, put yourself out there. Yes, use recruitment consultants, but at the same time, don't just bank on those consultants finding you a job. You do something about it also as well. Ciaran, with your sort of journey, then you were going mentored, you were sitting underneath financial advisors. You mentioned about your network. So did you bring some contacts with you, some clients, people that that would get financial advice from you? Was that something that you brought to the table, and was that part of the interview process as well, that they wanted to know that you had a network that potentially you could give advice to?
Yes, so that was actually part of the process. It was kind of, well, go away, have a think, and kind of present who you would want to kind of reach out to. And I essentially gave cohorts of people. So football, old uni friends, kind of friends from back home, just a whole different cohorts. And actually, it was interesting. The MD then turned around and said, "No, no, no. Basically, we want individuals. I want you to kind of understand, name the individuals, as in kind of, who would be your kind of client list." And then I basically went back, done a whole presentation on that, and then the individuals who I've thought I would give advice to. And that allowed the MD to understand it, whether I've got a network,
Mm-hmm.
whether I can get along with people. If you just sit in the house, yeah, or whether I've got a network of people. And that was kind of one of the questions that it was asked to me.
So I think, again, another thing that I always advise anybody that's moving into financial planning, or even moving on from financial advice into another financial advice role, is to always look at your clients, the potential clients, the prospects that you could work with, and label them almost simply into A, B, C clients. A being like, 100% that they would use your services, that you've got a hell of a relationship with them. You probably get down the pub and have a pint with them,
Yeah.
and then 3 is like that. The C list is like, well, I'm going to tap into that market, but I don't know 100%, but it's definitely something that I reckon I'm going to tap into. And B is like prospects, like I'm pretty confident I could get in there. And you kind of build that list of clients up and you put it into a simple list. And that's a great way, again, is if you ever go to an interview, it's just to present and say, look, I've had to think about this. Here's a little business plan that I've got. And it just adds such a deeper level of confidence because the interviewer, the business owner, the person who's running that business looking to take on a new advisor can go, this guy's thought about it, or this girl's thought about it. And I can see the network that they're part of, the types of people they brush shoulders with and where they think they can add value in their life. And they can then ascertain then also at the same time whether or not you're in cloud cuckoo land or you're being a realist. And then again, that's a deeper level of conversation. But also when you start talking about clients, what do financial advisors love to do? They love to talk about clients. Where can they help people? Where can they get some money for investments? What can they do to add value? And again, when you bring in, say, 10 really interesting people to the conversation within an interview, there we go. There's a great concept there, isn't it? Because they're going to be saying, well, this is what we can do for that person. This is what we can do for that person. And if you worked for us, and all of a sudden the tide sort of, it shifts, doesn't it? They're kind of selling their services to you because you've already gone out and established a network that needs advice.
Yeah, exactly. And that's two great bits of advice. First and foremost, the one where it's kind of, the breadcrumbs, always kind of keep in touch base. And then also then showing actually you've went out and thought about it yourself. And they're not just probing you questions. And they're not just asking you. You need to be proactive and kind of go, well, this is how I envision it anyway. And even thinking about your 5-year plan and presenting that to the employer and saying, look, this is how I envision everything going in the next 5 years. And they'll love that.
Absolutely. Well, again, 5-year plan. The first year plan is always good. So if you break down your first year, 3, 6, 9, 12, what do you think you're going to be doing within that period? I think that always makes someone think again, right, this person's thought about it. And then you say the long-term plan, where you want to take your life, where you personally want your personal earnings to be. What are the big things that are coming up in your life? Why this job fits around your life, what you want to take from it. And I think that's really, really important. So that's really, really sound quality advice. And did you find as well, when you went from interview to interview, your level of understanding of what was required at the interview stage improved and got better?
Yeah, so much better. Every interview seemed to be kind of, after the first couple, it could become quite obvious what kind of the interview process was going to be like. And it was really them diving into, myself and understanding actually what did I want to achieve myself, because that then gave them the understanding, well, actually, okay, we could probably work with this guy. And as I say, there was a few knockbacks, and then I got offered a few roles which I turned down. But it was all the same kind of process. It was, right, let's understand who you are as an individual, and then let's understand, well, actually what qualifications you've got as well post that.
So for you, being employed as a financial advisor sounds like it was a necessity. You wanted that, you wanted to be employed as opposed to self-employed. I could imagine some of the jobs you got offered might well have been self-employed roles.
Yeah, exactly. Self-employed roles.
Okay.
And
why was employed so important to you? Because you've worked in the world of consultancy before, so I assume you had your own company and were self-employed.
Yeah, and that is an interesting question, actually, because I suppose it was circumstantial. I was kind of purchasing my first property.
Okay.
And so I didn't want the concern. I was a bit concerned that actually, I want some income coming in. And also, I suppose there was a little bit of fear in there as well. Maybe that this might not go according to plan. It might not actually work out. So it was kind of that, that base. Well, actually, just in case it wasn't working out, I still got an income coming in. I know one of the firms basically offered me a loan, and kind of I then repaid it back over a 6-month period, and that seemed just a bit. I've got a pretty adventurous kind of attitude, but that seemed a little bit too risky. And so it was that kind of safety blanket. Well, I've just purchased my first property, and I'm also who knows how this was going to go.
So that financial security was a concern for you, taking a step into a world of the unknown. So you've never worked within financial planning before, going self-employed, taking a loan, which a lot of them actually do. That was a step too far. Did you feel as well, though, taking an employed role felt like there was a confidence from the company in you as a person? They were investing in you as well?
Yeah, that's a very good point as well. That is kind of, well, why would you be paying me if you didn't kind of think you were going to develop me and as an individual? And there was a clear structure. There is a clear structure for how to kind of go up through the ranks. And it's funny actually, because I will eventually go back to being self-employed because becoming a partner of the firm, which is obviously an intention, is then you becoming self-employed again. So it's a bit of a 360. So that is an interesting kind of, I thought then, I was going to be employed then for the rest of my life, but realizing actually to become part of the partnership, you then go back to self-employed. So that is, and this is the thing with the industry. Not many firms offer that employed role.
Not as many as they should. I think it will happen over time.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more and more firms that are now bringing in a better career structure within their business to be able to take somebody on, whether they come in as an administrator, to power planner, to financial advisor, or they are transferring their skills from another profession into financial advice. And they have to do that because, within the next 10 years, we're losing a huge amount of financial advisors. So the pool for good quality financial advisors is going to get less. If you look over at accountancy, solicitor, law, they have those clear structures. You can go from university all the way up to partner. It's very clear cut. Financial planning has never really had that. Some of the firms have put that in place, and you're starting to see it now come up more and more. But what I'm starting to notice also is a lot of the smaller firms, the ones that want to grow, the ones that I consider in a bit of a startup phase, they're very aware of the clear competency framework and the clear career structure required to take somebody from no experience all the way up to financial planner. And a lot of them are then using the government funding through the NV, through apprenticeships. You don't have to call it apprenticeship. You could call it the financial advisor school or something like that. The word apprenticeship has always had negative connotations of like you were a mechanic or something like that.
16-year-old,
16-year-old. Whereas actually, a lot of the firms are now using that, getting the benefit from the government, the training, development, taking that and then building that into their programs. And that's an excellent route I see, because not everybody is going to be an advisor within 2-3 years. And I think it's a great route starting as an administrator, great route starting as a power planner, and shadowing and listening and observing, because you can't just go from one to the other rapidly. Some people can, and you'll have the anomaly, but there's a huge amount to learn. And you were quite lucky because you saw the other side of the fence when you were doing your consultancy work and worked and had the kind of exposure, if you like, to working with different financial planners, and you understood the importance of good compliance. And now that's coming up with your competent advisor status. Let's just quickly touch on competent advisor status then. So being on the other end, now you're the advisor and you're getting everything signed off, looked at and everything. Talk to me about competent advisor status. What should somebody expect when they go into a role and someone says competent advisor status? What do you think someone should be aware of?
The scrutiny that basically advisors come under now. Obviously, back in the day it wasn't as regulated, which is only for now that is further more regulated. It's better for the client, but the scrutiny, the difficulty of actually the depth that they want to see, the amount of kind of information that you need to be uploading to the systems in order to ensure that if anything happened in 10 years 20 years time, that you've got everything backed up. And that is really what is happening with the industry. It's taken a lot of time to kind of go through competent advisor status, and it's also taken a lot of attention, where actually you've got to be really, really focused, actually ensuring that each detail is kind of documented, each document has been uploaded. It's a pretty strenuous process. It is. But it's only right for the clients, and also you're only going to get quicker at it as well.
Okay.
You just take your time.
So when you hear about becoming a financial planner and the financial planning firm have got administrators, they've got power planners, etc., is your experience so far of working in the profession that you are doing your own, fact finds, and from a competency advice perspective, is there a hell of a lot more administration on your end, let's say, than you thought there would be?
Yeah, a hell of a lot more. I thought it was just going out, meeting clients, handing over the work and then walking off and going to meet another client. It sounded ideal. And you don't see this side of it. You don't see anyone ringing the provider. You don't see them, right, okay, have you got that information from my client, for my client? You don't see this side of it. And there is a lot more administrative side to the process that I wasn't aware of. And it's really eye-opening. It is really eye-opening. And it kind of does, one of the things where people think, financial advice, people think there's a few things. People think it's basically a bit more expensive than what it actually is. But also I do think that actually, this whole slowing down and uploading everything and making the process pretty lengthy actually does mean that then you have to value your time cost wise, because it can take 3 days to work on one client, and therefore that can increase the cost of advice. And what I want to see is really kind of ideally for myself is I get people to do that from the administrative side, get someone in and then they can do that. They can learn that process, and as you say, basically the best way to learn for sure in this industry, I think, is to start off on the administrative side, then the power planning, doing your qualifications as you go along, and then become an advisor. And what I would always say that with that as well is just be patient. Be patient, because you might think to yourself, I'm going to be an advisor in 2 years time, and actually you're not an advisor in 2 years time. Don't worry, as long as there's an obvious clear path that you actually are going to become an advisor, like you said with regards to the law firms, as long as you can see a clear path, then you just got to be patient and ensure that actually I'm going to be here and I'm going to become an advisor.
So you were looking for a new job, you were looking to become a financial planner. It's important when you're in that position that you don't just take anything that comes along. I truly believe as well. And really, based on what you just said there, I think it's really important that as the candidate talking to the client, so the person who's looking to hire, that you question their career structure, personal development plan, and where they will invest time, energy in training and development for you to be able to achieve your goal of, say, becoming an advisor within 2 to 3 years, and what do they have in place that will support them. But I also think one of the big questions to ask is, who have you done this with before in the past? Is there anybody within your business that I would love to talk to that's gone through the process and has a really positive experience? Because when there aren't as many financial advice companies hiring somebody without experience, you become sometimes a little desperate and you think you should just take what's thrown at you. But I think there's a great way to establish, a couple of people have come back to me, 2 people in the last couple of weeks took a job, one way more money than I offered than I got him. So he took a different job with a different company, way more money, doesn't like it. He's getting no training, no support. He's just sat in his back bedroom, had to move and all that kind of stuff as well. And he's come back to me and said it. And another guy took an employed role with a company, promised the earth, and he's had to leave in the first couple of months.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they can't cope. It just doesn't match the expectation that they had, based on their level of experience. So it's very, very important that, the candidate, the person being interviewed, is also interviewing the employer to make sure that you're not wasting your time, because there's nothing worse than wasting your time. It is a bit of experience and you always take that away from it. But if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right, is what I always say.
That is so true. And it's a two-way process. As you say, you've got to interview them as well and to understand actually what processes they have in place. And you're so right. If it doesn't feel right, then it's probably not right. And and that is what it come to when I basically turned down a couple of roles. I was pretty, really focused on actually doing this, and actually I had to take a little bit of back step. I had a couple of weeks to think about it, and I kind of was like, you know what, let's just have a little bit of time out here just to think and ensure that this is definitely the right role. Do I want to be taken on a loan, for example? Seemed very, very adventurous, and yeah, and then you've got to really ensure that actually it's the company that basically suits you. And yeah, and as you say though, this apprenticeship levy is so important as well. That actually get the qualification. The government are going to pay for your
Yeah.
qualifications. The company don't have to pay for it.
Mm.
And as long as you can see a clear structure, that means that you will give advice eventually. Yeah, then that is when they bite your hand off. You bite their hand off. Sorry.
Absolutely. All right, great stuff. Another area you just touched on a second ago is that you've been on holiday. You're doing a bit of work when you were on holiday.
Mm.
Yeah. Your expectation, let's say, of the role before you got into it is far different to what the reality of it actually is. Can you just kind of touch on it? Because we live in this world now where everybody wants work-life balance and wants to live the life that they want to live and have all the benefits and all the well-being propositions that go with it and a stress-free life. And I get that, we do want those types of things. But in the role of a financial planner, going into it in those early stages, there is a lot of work, isn't there? And there's a lot of your time taken up with learning, a lot of your time taken up with client development, perhaps some evening work where you can't get hold of clients in the day, so you've got to speak to them in the evening. What is the reality, of work-life balance within your first year so far? Has it been quite tough? Have you had to do the extra work? And also, is it okay to do that extra work? Do you feel good about doing it because it's progressing your skill set and you know that in the end you're going to probably know more, so therefore you gain that time back in the future?
Yeah, that's it. Like the first year has been pretty crazy, really. Long hours, working during holiday, which is, not what I used to do when I was a consultant, was kind of leave everything there. And you're doing long hours and you've basically think to yourself, well, actually, I was given a couple of snippets of information which were really powerful while interviewing in different places. The first 2 years is going to be the hardest 2 years. That then allows you to kind of, spread your seed and make sure that everyone knows that you're actually doing, giving advice. And then you do well off that because you've put in the first 2 years of work. And I've got another year of it, and it's kind of something I envision, another year's work, and then after that, hopefully everything should be in place. The foundations are built, and you kind of then just grow upon that. So yeah, the first year has been long hours and a lot of work, but it's for the long term. You've got to perceive beyond the short term pain.
And we all have targets within our roles. Financial planning is no different. It can't be considered a sales role, but you still have income targets to achieve. And you still have a certain level of assets under management, for example, to bring in on a fee basis to be able to cover your costs. Now, have you got a plan in place? Like you mentioned there, another year. Is that because you've got a specific target of assets under management that you want to hit, a goal? Or, how have you determined that it's a couple of years of hard work?
So ideally what I want to be doing in a year's time is taking someone on and having then someone to do the administrative side. And then that means I can, go out and give further advice, more advice to more clients. That is really, the plan. And ultimately, it means that I have to have a certain amount of clients first and foremost before I do that. And also I have to have a certain amount of assets under management before I do that as well, because then that gives me, a good foundation. And yeah, and also that means that I'll hopefully be partner as well within a year's time. So, it's basically December 2022. That's the goal, and setting that goals. I'm setting a pretty stretched target, but that's the aim of the game.
I think it's hugely important to have a career-based framework that you can see in front of you based on your level of performance, whether it be competency-based performance, but also your level of income that you're bringing into the business, the types of clients that you're bringing in, that there is a path for you that can get you all the way to that partner level, confidently knowing at each stage, and you can review it and you can tweak things and you can change things. There's nothing worse than starting a job and then you haven't got a clue where you're going or how long it's going to take you to get there. And as a recruitment agency, I've retweaked ours recently. So someone can literally start as a trainee, and we're really not dumbed down the trainee role. That's the wrong word. We've made it very simple, the trainee role. So they have to achieve certain targets to move up to recruitment consultant, to move up to senior, to move up to associate, to move up to director. But in each of those stages, they can clearly see exactly what it is they're going to achieve every step of the way, how much they're potentially going to earn, what it means to them. Is there a route they can go down management? Is there a route that they can go down just principal consultant, for instance? What benefits do they get on top of that? And it's now I've done that, and where I hadn't had that before, it's like, oh God, like, why didn't I have that? Because these people need it. I need it. I need a plan. I need a plan of where my
you need that visualization, don't you? You need to just see it clearly and right, okay, that's the next step. That's the next step. That's the next step. And becomes pretty evident, right? Okay, this is what I need to do.
And that's my advice to any companies that are listening today, is make sure you've got your competency framework in place. Make sure you've got a career framework in place. Can it take somebody all the way from administrator, all the way up to financial advisor? How long will it take? Build a recruitment model around that. Go out there to the market, and people will love it. And you'll hire the best talent that way. And if you can use things like the government levy around apprenticeships, then use it, because it's absolutely going to add value. It's going to save you time, it's going to save you money, but also, again, it will attract the right people to the business, because you've got that confidence in them that they're going to have that confidence in you, that you're investing in their personal development, and you've put a plan that's clearly defined in front of them.
Yeah. And do you know the apprenticeship levy? So I know with regards to the qualifications, basically, that they definitely put you through the qualifications. Do you know if it's any further with kind of subsidies regarding kind of while they're going through the qualifications, that they would subsidize any wage or anything like that? Or is that
it's a specific amount that the government will give. I can't remember how much it is towards. There's like a bonus incentive for taking somebody on. So like that firm might get 2,000, 3,000 quid.
Right, yeah.
And they'll pay like 90% of the qualifications and the training on the side of that as well.
Okay, yeah.
So it's kind of like they might get like 3,000 quid off the salary or something like that. So it's not like a huge saving. The saving kind of comes in via the paying the qualification and the training and the development to get them through that qualification. So if you're a smaller business and you haven't got the time and energy to do the training as well, because you're an advisor owner, let's say, for instance, then it's perfect, because you can have that training program running alongside. You just focus on the kind of soft skill stuff, and they do the qualification, so you don't have to as a business owner. And also you get like I think it's like $3,000 or something like that. That you get towards like the first year's salary or something, and hopefully by then they're up and running.
I think it's a fantastic incentive from the government, actually. That whole apprenticeship levy and educating people through, rather than just going purely university. Actually, you can go to utilize practical kind of work.
They can also, I think, stand to give a bit more to the financial planning profession. I think they could probably do more around it, because good quality financial planners are required. Therefore, it's only going to add good quality value to the customers that are out there that are missing out on financial advice. And it's an area of growth. We need more financial planners. So I think they could probably do with giving a bit more money to that side, and helping businesses grow, because one of the biggest concerns that people have is the cost of hiring. Cost of hiring is a lot, whether it's taking on somebody, paying a recruitment agency fee, salaries, an advisor, a trainee advisor isn't paying for themselves for a good year, 2 years. So it's a big outlay. There's that fear attached to it that if they take that person on, that they get good and they just leave, and go and join another firm because they're qualified and they've got experience, and all of a sudden that person's candidature in the market shoots up. Someone's got 2 years experience as a financial advisor. Perhaps that firm took them on for 25 grand. Once they got 2 years experience, they can go and get a 50 grand salary.
People are after you, really, aren't they?
Oh, you are a commodity. You're a very sought after commodity.
But then again, it goes back to the structure, doesn't it? To ensure that actually the structure's there, and then you can see the clear pathway.
Exactly.
That then means exactly. Rather than you basically going, well, you know what, someone's contacted me and it's, you know, they're offering 20 grand more, but actually, well, what does that role actually offer? You know?
Yeah. Why would someone stay with your firm if you haven't made it very clear of what they can expect within that role? If you make it incredibly clear, it's transparent, and they are working towards something, it's a hell of a lot harder to leave a company because you're leaving it all behind.
Exactly. And, you know, never chase the cash, let the cash chase you.
Yes.
I thought that was a good.
Never chase the cash. Yeah. It's a tough one though, isn't it? Because we all want more money.
Well, that's it, you know, but if you keep on doing the right things at the right times, and, you know, then I think it just naturally happens.
The money will
you've
come.
got you. Exactly. Yeah.
Ciaran, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and it's great to have you on for you talking about your first year, because I think it's really beneficial to people listening to this, because they don't have a great expectation of what's going to happen within that first year, and the process when it comes to interviews and how long it takes and the realities of the role. So Ablestoke sound like, you know, they're doing a fantastic job, you know, getting somebody like your background, skill set, seeing that, and then bringing you into the business and training and developing you up. So sounds like you found a really, really good home there. It's been a while since I've done anything with Ablestoke. So perhaps maybe you should do an introduction with me or somebody there, because there's plenty of people that I know could fit that model really, really well.
Cool.
So it'd be good for us to have a little catch up on that, a bit of business on the side that, you know.
That's it. Always
business
find an angle. And what I was going to say, and you know, that is, definitely. Why not? And hopefully we can work together in the future as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm always keen to speak to you, Ciaran. Obviously, we've started the relationship now, and it's we've been speaking on and off for the last year, and it's always a pleasure. It's great to put a face to, you know, to a voice as well. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Nice one. Thanks, Ciaran.